Welcome to this special edition of the Upland Nation podcast. Yeah, it's been a while, and a lot of you, like me, noticed that, there was a news item a few days ago that really shook me. It wasn't Bob's dog, but it was one of the legacy dogs that carried on in the footsteps of Bob Farris's Pudelpointer, picking up the tee at the Boise State football games every year. The passing of yet another Pudelpointer of legend reminded me that many of you had not heard my earlier interview with Bob, a mentor of mine, training partner. Mentioned him a number of times in my book, and seems to be one of the more popular episodes of the Upland Nation podcast. So, by the way, I'm Scott Linden, the host of the Upland Nation podcast, and here we are, learning more every day from some of the folks who, well, I'll just call them the icons of our generation. Bob Farris from Idaho is one of those kind of guys. I've had the pleasure of knowing him for quite a while, and I'm sure you will enjoy listening once again to my interview with Bob that originally aired way back in February of 2020 when his new book came out. We'll talk about the book, we'll talk about puppies, we'll talk about training, we'll talk about testing. It's all coming up right here. So pay attention, write the things down that are of value to you. I can guarantee you'll learn something from him, and it's all made possible by Roughland Performance Kennels, Happy Jack Dog Care Products, Huron, South Dakota's Ringneck Nation, and Dr. Tim's Natural Premium Dog Food. Enjoy. So without further ado, like I said earlier, Bob Farris joins us from somewhere in Idaho. Bob, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
It's good to talk with you again. It's been a while since I've been over there. I think I might have seen you at a NAVHDA test in between then and now, but I'm constantly thinking of you because every time I do any dog training, I know you taught me to do it a different way, and I wish I could remember that before I did it the wrong way. So if I might just give people just a little bit of backstory, and then I'll ask you to fill in the blanks. If anybody used to watch is it Boise State? It's Boise State. Football games. You have a rather unusual claim to fame there. Why don't you tell us about that?
Well, back about 2000, I graduated from Boise State, and I've been going to games. I don't want to tell you how long I've had season tickets, but anyway, somewhere about 2008, 2009, athletic director called me and asked me if I could train a dog to retrieve the kicking tee following kickoffs. And I had trained his dog for him I was training gun dogs. I'd trained a hunting dog for the basketball coach. I'd trained one for the athletic director, and so they knew who I was. We'd hunted together, and so I said, "Yeah, I think I can do that. Let me try." So I spent off and on the summer training and whatnot for it, and opening game was ironically Boise State against Oregon State. And it was ESPN game day here in Boise, and it was just flooded with ESPN people, and probably as close to a heart attack as I ever came was getting ready to send the dog on that first retrieve. But I think he retrieved that tee 7 times that day. Boise State put a pretty good whooping on Oregon State, and we had a young quarterback named Kellen Moore. And that team went, 19 of those players went into the NFL. And a lot of them, their rookie year in the NFL started. So it was a great, great, talented team that scored lots and lots of points. So I was they were scoring in the 50s and 60s every game, which meant lots of kickoffs, lots of tee retrieves, and a lot of fun. I included my whole family and my 2 grandsons. I would alternate with these 2 grandsons and let them hold the dog while I watched the game, and they were standing on the sidelines with all the players, and it was a good time, really, really a good time. But 3 years of it, and it was time to move on.
Well, I understand that. The rumor has it that your dog was in the second round of the NFL draft that year.
I don't know about the draft, but I know I could have run him for mayor of Boise, and he'd have won.
Oh yeah, I saw him in action. It was quite a spectacle. In addition to all of that, I think the first place we probably met was out at your swamp out there, where you were so kind to allow so many NAVHDA tests or segments of tests or training, all those things happening out there in Idaho. And then, like I said, came over and enjoyed the heck out of some training we did together. Out of that, I wrote a book, and then eventually somebody smarter than me wrote a book that would be called Breeding and Training Versatile Hunting Dogs, and that would be you, Bob, right?
That was me.
Tell me, why did you finally decide to put all that stuff down?
You know, I had written off and on myself, Jeff Funke, Blaine Carter. We were kind of ghostwriters for Pointing Dog Journal and helping with articles. And somewhere along the way, Chuck Johnson asked me to write a book, and I didn't want to write a book. I just felt like I don't want to put my name out there, my ego in front of people and whatnot. But finally, you know, my wife and I went to Kauai for 2 weeks, and 2 weeks in Kauai, I had nothing to do but sit on the beach and write a book. So I wrote the whole book sitting over there, and brought it home, and it was all handwritten, and I gave it to a secretary that I'd had at work, and she put it all into Word documents, and then it got published. LaFay actually published it in Amazon, and so, I don't know, it was kind of a fun adventure. It was a lot easier than I thought it would possibly be, and, you know, a lot of why I wrote it was because I really felt there was a need for people that wanted to train a dog. A lot of the training wasn't geared towards the versatile dogs. I mean, you can go back to a lot of the training for retrievers, and I mean the very, very high end training that's in books, and so in selling puppies to people, I wanted to give them as much information as I could, basically, so I didn't have to possibly deal with them. You know, I wanted them to be able to take care of their own training needs. So, you know, it just kind of all came together. I probably would never do it again. You know, I've been topped because my wife then turned right around and wrote a cookbook.
Oh, as it should be, because she's a great gal and obviously an incredible help on your book. You unlike and I've forgotten who said it first, probably Hemingway. He said it's easy to write a book. Just sit down and open a vein. I don't even think you didn't even prick a finger on a coconut drink of any sort.
No. Well, like I say, it was fun, and I'd written a number of articles about different things, and so I included a lot of that in the book. I think the hardest thing was to create an outline of what I wanted in the book, and once that was done, it just all happened.
Yeah, that's spectacular, and it's a great book, everybody. And the best way to find it, I figured out, is right there on Amazon. If you just Google Amazon Bob Farris dog book, you'll find it. I just did that to test that theory, and it worked great. So spend a few nickels and dimes on that, and you'll learn something, not just about dog training and dog behavior, but about the life of a guy who, to many people, is living the life. So, Bob, before we get to your specific breed, you've used the term already a couple times, and there may be a listener or two out there on the Upland Nation podcast who's not quite sure what a versatile hunting dog is. As a judge, as an active NAVHDA guy in the past, why don't you define versatile hunting dog in a concise manner?
Probably kind of the do-everything dog. I mean, we've got a lot of really great breeds for sportsmen, dog enthusiasts, from the retrievers to the pointers to the flushers, you know, down to cockers. And everybody kind of picks what's going to suit them, and a versatile dog is just meant to be able to do all of it. Maybe not be the best at anything, but the best at doing everything. And there's a big group of breeds that fall into this, and they need to be good hunting dogs in the field, good water dogs, good tracking dogs, good family dogs, just a little bit of everything. And it's, I think for the sportsman, it gets to be kind of cumbersome trying to figure out, okay, I know I want a versatile dog, but I don't know which one I want. And you get overpowered with the number of breeds, from short hairs to wire hairs to Brittany's to Vizslas to Weimarimers. I mean, it goes on and on. And they're all versatile. They all have the capabilities of being a versatile dog. Some are a little better at different things. And then some breeders have, carried a lot better torch and just done a lot better job. And with the internet today, it's for the guy that really is looking for a top dog, it's pretty easy to find the best of all of these breeds.
Oh, yeah. And in fact, this is fascinating that you and I connected again after a while. One of my nieces, her husband, decided he wants to become a bird hunter all of a sudden. And the first correspondence I got from him was, I think I've settled on a poodle pointer. What do you think? And and for him, not the right idea, but for a lot of people, extremely correct. Why don't you tell me what you love about the poodle pointer breed, which you came over to from the retrieving side? So, tell me about your conversion.
Well, my first dog I ever owned was an English setter, and I fell in. My dad always had Llewellyn setters, and so when I graduated from college, I needed a hunt. I stayed in Boise, and we had great bird hunting. I needed a bird dog, so I just went back to a setter, and I met some guys. I started doing some pointer field trials, and then I fell in love with waterfowling. I didn't realize, the Snake River, Boise River, Payette River fills up with ducks, and I needed a retriever, so I chose a Chesapeake. And so I ended up field trialing Chesapeakes for quite a while, and I ran all over the Northwest at AKC retriever trials for a good number of years. And as my kids got older and some of my habits got more expensive, I opened up or created a little part-time dog training business, and one of the dogs I got in to train was a poodle pointer. I didn't even know what one was, and the guy paid me to hunt it rather than train it. It was a fully trained dog. It had been trained by Bodo Winterhelt, gone through all the NAVHDA tests way back then, but he wanted it hunted on wild birds. So I took his money and hunted the dog, and first day I hunted the dog, I realized I'd never owned a dog that was this capable. I shot a rooster out over the Snake River, and I crippled it, actually. And this little poodle pointer just dove in the river, swam out, chased it clear to an island, retrieved it off the island, brought it back, brought it to me, still alive, soaking wet. And I thought, my God, my setter would have turned and acted like it hadn't seen that if it would have been with me. And I got to have one of these dogs as a meat dog, just something for more hunting success, and it all just kind of gelled from there.
Okay, let's get back to the part that caught my ear first, and that is some guy paid me money to take his dog hunting. Where do I sign up for that?
Well, I don't know, not anymore. I suppose I got a grandson that would probably do it. I've got a predator grandson, but no, that was, and this was a professional that had too many dogs, and he just wanted to make sure this poodle pointer got to hunt wild birds.
Yeah, I think I met him once or twice. If we're talking about the same guy, and what a great way to learn about this breed. So after that, you clearly became a little bit more interested, because when I was over there was at least 3 or 4 dogs in your kennel, and if I recall, there might be a litter on the ground right about now. Am I guessing right on that?
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, congratulations on that. So what is it? I mean, you're in this game now for a long time, and I won't tell anybody how long, but what keeps the blood flowing, the adrenaline pumping with poodle pointers for you?
I think, I don't know, that my first poodle pointers honestly weren't like the ones that are available today, and the ones today are so human being affectionate that it's hard to resist them. I mean, I've got 3 of them sitting here next to me, and they just lay here, and every time I look at them, their eyes are on me. It's like they just have a very unique, affectionate personality, and we don't have the hunting that we had when I first got into poodle pointers, but what I get inside the house, and when we go out to dinner, our dogs go with us. They sit in the car and wait, and almost everywhere we go, our dogs are with us, and they just become part of your life. I mean, I think you're the same way. I don't think you're any different. I think your dogs are a huge part of your life, and you find this with a lot of, regardless of the breed. I've known so many people that aren't just poodle pointer people. You have German wire hairs, and between Jeff Funky and Carla Hawkins, Meg Eden, Kelly Job, Paul Trout, all these people work as a team together. They get along good with each other. They all breed good dogs, and they all live with their dogs. Their dogs live with them. It's not like the old days where the dogs sat out in a chain link kennel waiting for hunting season. I mean, you're not going to see Carla Hawkins without her dogs with her.
Well, the versatile breeds, of course, as you well know, I'm not telling you anything, but a lot of people out there wondered how they came together, and they were developed as a breed, if you will, a dog that would do everything. The Gebrauchshund, all day, every day dog that would do all the things you described, and then get along with the family, protect the home, and probably herd the kids around if they needed herding. So, it sounds like to me, poodle pointers might be the ultimate iteration of that. It sounds like you feel that way. Am I right?
Well, yeah, but all the years I trained gun dogs for other people, I experienced a lot of dogs. I trained over 600 gun dogs for other people, and you look at the breeds. I don't know how many Vizslas and wire hairs and short hairs. My God, I trained hundreds of short hairs, and I can tell you, some of the nicest dogs I've ever trained were other breeds. Mm-hmm. I would probably own Vizslas today, but back when I was training dogs, they wouldn't go in the water.
Yeah,
I see now we've got breeders now, Bridget Nielsen and Cheryl Tepp. They're breeding tremendous water dogs, and those type of Vizslas weren't available back when I kind of selected a breed. But I trained some wonderful field Vizslas. Same with short hairs. Same with English pointers. I don't know. I'm not as hung up on a poodle pointers being the breed of choice for everybody. Some breeders get pretty kennel blind. Mm-hmm. I'm just not that way, and I think it's because I spent a lot of years training a variety, and I know differently.
Yeah, and I see that. You can have a discussion with 2 or 3 breeders that are deep into their breed, and they are. You're right. They do have blinders on them to a degree, but that comes from any number of sources. We see it every day on social media too.
Oh yeah.
And just to address the question right up front. Yes, versatile breeds were developed by amalgamating a number of other foundation breeds back in the day. This is not one of those doodle breeds is fashionable today. These dogs were developed for a purpose other than making lots of money for the creator of the breed. So, yes, poodle, yes, pointer, but it goes way back before those guys in Australia came up with that idea. We got a lot to talk about. And I just want to touch on this before our first break, Bob, and that is there are breed clubs, there are kennel clubs, and then there's the Alliance. And in this case, we're talking about your breed's North American Pudelpointer Alliance. That's kind of a different approach, and I'd love you to start the discussion on why you feel we need an alliance versus the bigger breed club.
Well, I gotta give credit where credit's due. Years ago, I trained almost daily with Jeff Funke. We were both dog trainers making our way through the dog world, and Jeff started an alliance, and he was a German wirehair breeder trainer, and he started an alliance with, 4 or 5 people, and, sitting drinking a beer one day after we finished training, he explained to me that this gave him more opportunity for breeding dog selection, and working in a team, and a cooperative team, as a breeder, he had a lot more opportunities than I had sitting on my own. And it all made sense to me. And so years later, Bill Athens and Mike Pilata and I are sitting in a bar in the Czech Republic. We'd gone to Germany, Austria, the Czech Republic, looking at dogs, and primarily only poodle pointers. But while we were there, this idea came up of how much better the dogs were in the Czech Republic than what we had just seen in Germany. How much the people in the Czech Republic were very, very strict about which dogs got to pass on their genetics, and we're kind of shamefully thinking how open it is in North America. And the idea came up, how are we going to protect this breed from all the fools that are going to come along and just indiscriminately breed these dogs without any total plan? And so we came up with the old Jeff Funke idea, why don't we create an alliance, and why don't we get 8 or 10 top breeders together and create some guidelines and some breeding requirements. And really the only requirement would go back to the performance, the field performance, and that's where NAVHDA testing came in. So we got back home and we started an alliance, and it's God, I don't know when the first alliance, I think it was it was 2002, I think, when we started that, and there were 15 members, and by 2010 there were 22 members. By 2019 there were 49 members.
Wow.
Well, it really grew, and the basics was just having a performance standard, which was, and as time went on, we raised the standard. We started out that a dog had to receive 100 points in natural ability to be bred, and the males had to have a utility prize to be bred. And that eliminated that only encouraged the above average dogs to basically ever see dog sex. And next thing you know, our average
works for me, by the way. Yeah.
the average of the breed jumped from, I think, 98 points to 103 points. So we raised the bar, and we said, okay, let's go to 105. We won't let anybody breed that can't get 105 in natural ability. And lo and behold, now the average for all poodle pointers is 107.
Which, by the way, is almost a perfect score. You can get 112 in the natural ability test. So 107 is what, 93% or something.
It's something that statistically you think, how can that happen? And some of it, and here again, I got to go back and be a little bit honest about things and say some of the NAVHDA testing was designed with the poodle pointer in mind. The three individuals that created and started NAVHDA, John Cagle, Bodo Winterhelt, Ed Bailey, two of those were poodle pointer people. John Cagle then switched and went to wire hairs, but they really didn't have some of these other breeds in mind as much. So the poodle pointers always had a kind of an advantage in NAVHDA testing to score. But I'll tell you, as time has gone on, the short hairs have they're right there even scale with the poodle pointers, and they're probably more popular. There's probably more of them.
Sure.
They're way more versatile champion short hairs. So, that all of these breeds have improved. I just sent Bridget Nielsen a text the other day, and I said, when in the hell do I get one of those red dogs you guys are producing? Because I'll tell you, these Vizslas are tremendous dogs in today's world. So every breed has the opportunity to grow and become better. And this is where breed clubs or alliances, whatever you want to call it, really, really pay the advantage for a breed, or they also pay a disadvantage. And you can look at some breeds, and they went to a breed club that was kind of designed with a breed warden, and they always fail. Within 10 years, you've got people bickering and fighting, and too many standards and too many opinions, and that's why I think the poodle pointer's success by only worrying over performance.
It's so funny. I know the club you're talking about, and I describe it as a club for old fat guys with nothing better to do.
Well, it's kind of sad because people's intentions are always good. I mean, they always are.
Yeah, sure.
Nobody in the dog world is evil. There's no such thing. But there are people that the breed warden approach in America just doesn't work. If you look at, I recently went to the Bird Dog Hall of Fame in Tennessee, and it was just spectacular for me because I saw all these retrievers that I competed against, River Oaks Corky, Super Chief, and then I saw all of the people that kicked my ass in retriever trials, from Mike Lardy all the way down, and nobody told any of those people how they were going to breed their dogs.
Yeah.
There were no breed wardens in Labrador business. And then when you looked at the English pointers and you saw what Bob Whaley and, all of the pointer people, there was no breed warden. Each individual breeder was his own breed warden. And this is where I kind of draw the line in the sand, that I'm going to stay on the side where there's no breed warden. Every kennel should be able to choose how they want to breed. If they got a dog with big floppy ears or droopy eyes, that's their business. It'll all come home in the end. But the bickering over some of the small little issues of different dogs' phenotypes just doesn't play out well in America.
Well, amen for that. And we're at about the mark where I'm going to let you take a little bit of a sip of whatever you got next to you while I pay the bills. So hang on, everybody. We got a lot more to talk about. We're just getting started here.
We'll be back to Bob in just a moment. But first, let me just thank all of our sponsors. And I'm going to jam them all into this break just so that we can get it all done and move forward from there. Sage and Breaker gun care products crafted at the highest caliber. SageandBreaker.com is where you get all the information on Fred Boehm's incredibly diverse and growing line of gun care products, from gun grease and a clean lube and protect spray to shotgun cases, all the tools you need to take care of your shotgun. It's all at SageandBreaker.com. Sign up for the mailing list, and you won't miss any of the new products the moment they're available to you. Once you've visited Fred Boehm's site, visit HuntHuronSD.com. That's where you sign up for a free information pack full of great public access maps, coupons, promotions, and savings. Plus, it enters you to win one of 3 hunting, lodging, restaurant packages. It's all from Huron, South Dakota, the Ringneck Nation. Sign up and get all that information for free. 140,000 acres of public access within a half hour or so of downtown Huron. More birds than people. HuntHuronSD.com. And Dr. Tim Hunt is the guy behind Dr. Tim's Natural Premium Dog Food. No artificial colors, no artificial flavors, none of the stuff that you might find in some of those lesser, I'll call them lesser dog foods. Take a look at all the ingredients in your current dog food and then take a look at Dr. Tim's and see if there's a difference. If there is, there's a reason for it. Tim is the only guy I know who puts all the sources of all of his ingredients on his website. Learn more at drtims.com. Free delivery right to your door. 30% discount on your first order. Just use the code UplandNation. All right, and that is our cue right there to bring Bob back in during our Handle It segment. This is usually where I share with you what I learned the hard way, so you don't have to when it comes to training or caring for your dog. Bob, you with me over there?
I'm with you.
Great. Okay, then. Here's what I'd like to do. Turn the tables on you for a moment here. You're a dog trainer, you're a dog aficionado, you're a NAVHDA judge, you wrote a book on the subject, so you must know a little bit about how this all works. If you were to narrow it down to the top 2 or 3 training mistakes people like me make, and you've seen a lot of them, you probably corrected a lot of them, what would you think is at the top of that list?
Number 1 is not teaching the dog to come when it's 8 to 12 weeks old. That would have to be number 1. Everybody puts up with the dog probably way too long, ignoring them, and the dog kind of learns that I don't have to obey because I know what he wants. He says come, he kneels down, he pats his leg. I don't want to come, so to hell with him. I'm going to ignore him. And what happens right off the bat, the dog learns I don't have to mind unless there's something in it for me. And I tell everybody when they get a puppy from me, I say make about a 10-foot little cord, let the dog drag it around the house, around the yard. At 8 weeks old, grip a hold of that cord and say come, say it 3 times, and then just pull the dog into you, make it come, starting, and when it gets to you, love it up, that's its reward. And that's probably number 1. Number 2 would probably be so many people don't take the time to take, especially a versatile dog, I like to call it create a frisbee dog. Dog.
Yeah.
A dog that loves to retrieve. I mean, it loves it. It loves that game. Well, if you create it when they're 10, 12 weeks old, and by the time they're 6 months, you don't have a lot of work on the retrieving game. You don't have to force retrieve that dog. You can do what they call a more of a trained retrieve, where you just insist they don't drop things. Those are probably the 2 things that I just see people failing at, and it's getting too busy in your day. And if I say there's a 3rd one, it's probably lack of socialization.
Mm-hmm.
Not thinking through and taking the individual time. You asked me about the Boise State thing. One of the biggest fears I had was, one, failing in front of ESPN. But number two was my dog freaking out the first time they saw a black man. They had never seen somebody other than a Caucasian. And I thought, okay, I remember, I grew up in a little town over in Oregon, Enterprise, Oregon. I never saw anybody but Caucasians until I went to college. And the first time I physically saw one, I stared at him for a while. Next thing you know, I was playing football with these guys, and it was like, hey, they're just like me. But I was afraid that my dog would see one and go and bark at him, back up and bark. So I took Eli, went down to the stadium. I went into the weight room. I had him on a leash. One of the running backs was lifting a weight. I handed him the leash, and I said, hey, could you hold my dog? I got to go take a piss. And he looked at me like, yeah, I guess. So I went down to the athletic director's office. I sat in there for 30 minutes and shot the breeze, came back, and there'd been about 5 different guys holding the dog while I was gone. So all of a sudden, it didn't matter what color you were. Well, the next thing that I thought was, what are they going to do when they see a football player with a helmet on? That's going to freak them out.
Yeah, yeah.
So again, I went to a high school football game and talked the coach into letting me walk the dog through the players on the sideline, and I actually sent the dog out and let him retrieve the kicking tee a couple times. And so when I relate that back to people when they get a puppy, I'll say, okay, you don't have any kids. What do you think, what was your response the first time that you actually saw a midget? You didn't run up and hug him, and you stared at him. And that's going to be the response that your dog's going to have once it sees a little toddler, if it's never seen one. So you take your dog and go to a soccer game, go to a Little League football game. There'll be parents there with children. Let people pet your dog, hold your dog, walk it along on a leash, and just introduce it to kids. Take it to Home Depot. Let it see all kinds of people. And I'm talking, after they've had their second puppy shot, everybody should start a very, very serious socialization process with their dog.
Oh, I can't agree more. Our mutual friend Ed Bailey's column in the current Gundog magazine starts with that topic. And if you've had more than one dog, you've already lived through it. And Bob, I can relate to every one of those fears you had. Yes, I failed in front of the ESPN cameras as well. Probably more gloriously than most people, but it's so true, and it is all of those things and more. Now with Flick, I've been lucky because Flick has been going and sitting on the table at the Mitchell Cabela's store since he was 4 months old. You're listening to the Upland Nation podcast. That's Bob Farris, author, breeder, dog trainer, and all-around good guy. But he's also Bob, I'm going to brag for just a moment here. I'll talk more later about this, by the way, everybody. So if you want to tune out now, it's a good time. But I just spent the entire season hunting new places I'd never been to before, and almost everywhere I was hunting was for chukars. So if you got anything to contribute to the whole bird hunting and possibly even the chukar hunting discussion here, you got any strategies for us? Because I'm still learning every time I go out.
Chukar, when I started upland hunting, there were so many pheasants here in Idaho. The limit was 4. I hunted Oregon and Idaho every weekend, so I had a 8 bird limit. It was incredible. Well, I would probably feel guilty today shooting a rooster in Idaho. I just don't. In fact, the 2 times that I've gone, I left the gun in the car. I didn't want to shoot a rooster. I love seeing them. So the chukars, for some wonderful reason, chukars have really adapted to our more arid high desert country. And Utah, Nevada, Idaho, Oregon, Washington, Wyoming, there's good chukar populations, and they seem to hold steady without any help from humans. And as you get older, it gets harder and harder. I mean, there was a time that I could go put together a 6-8 hour chukar hunt and get back to the truck and not be completely dead. Now for me, a chukar hunt's about 3 hours, and I'm done. I need to kind of think about where I go and what kind of country I get into, but all of the time, and I hunted chukars with a guy named Joe Leonard way back, and I was a lab supervisor at a hospital. Joe was the groundskeeper. Joe hunted every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. He took every Tuesday and Thursday as his vacation from September 15th until January 31st. He hunted chukars. And he was absolute master. And I was fortunate to get to hunt with him. And, he had 2 wire hairs, and they were extremely disciplined. They backed each other great. They retrieved great. His whole game was, and he used to preach this to me all the way out and all the way back. He would talk about the rules of chukar hunting, but his number one rule was, you find your dogs on point, don't walk up behind them, because you're standing probably X number of feet taller. I'm going to change phones here, I think. Am I still on?
Yeah, loud and clear.
All right. His whole thing was, you walk up behind a dog, you're standing about 4 feet higher than that dog. Those chukars see you. They don't see the dog. And most dogs learn to stay way off of chukars because they know there's very little cover between the dog and the birds. The birds can see you coming. And that's why you invariably see dogs pointing chukars a good 50 yards off the covey, sometimes 200 yards, depending on the dog and the conditions and how the scent's moving. But when they point a pheasant, they're 5 feet, because there's usually so much cover. The dog pheasant that can't see me, I can get this close. They said, if you walk up behind a dog standing 4 feet higher, guess what? Those birds see you. And there's usually one sentinel bird, and he says, we better get the hell out of here, and they all flush, and you don't even get a shot.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, well, so you come off to the side, and you slip down the side and get what you think is below the birds, and then come around, kind of hook around. Now you're under the birds, and now you work your way up towards your dog. And basically, you try to get the birds between you and the dog without the birds seeing you doing it.
I'm laughing with you at that one because, like you said, you think you're below the birds.
Yeah. Well, and the whole idea is to maximize your shots. Now, Joe shot a 28 gauge pump, and he shot number 7 shot, and he'd always say not 7.5, 7. And back then the limit was 10, and he would be thoroughly pissed on the way home if he shot over 12 shots to get his 10 birds. He was but he secured really good shots by his technique, and his dogs were so well trained and they behaved so good. And I don't know, I got to say, I probably find 1 out of 10 times I can make that happen. The other 9 out of 10 times something just seems to go wrong. One time I knew I was under the birds, and I started coming up the hill. Tucker was on point, and I kept getting closer and closer and closer to him. I thought, when the hell are these birds going to lift up? And then I realized I was herding the birds uphill. They didn't know my dog was there. Oh. And I watched this bird, this one chucker, jump up on a rock, within probably a fucker's head. Hopped up on this rock, and Tucker's just kind of like he's petrified. If I move him, I'm in trouble. Maybe and I actually herded these birds past him, and I flushed them up above him.
Wow.
But it gets an interesting game to try to play, and like I said, if you're lucky, 1 time out of 10, you feel like you won the war. Yeah,
it's so true.
Chukar hunting is a war. I mean, people, they are the enemy. You learn to hate them because they win all the time.
Absolutely, and as they say, that's why you hunt them the first time for fun, and after that, it's for revenge. Yep. And if you've done it the right way, and of course, everybody here at the Upland Nation podcast understands that we're talking about real wild chuckers that are living in the high lonesome, not that stuff you get at the game farm. But you're absolutely right, and this idea of getting away from the dog, I've never thought of as a height question, but it's absolutely true. And you'd think I would, because we used to put a camera on my dogs for the TV show, and you'd see the dog's eye view. And if you could put one on a bird, and we tried that too, it would have illustrated that. Absolutely. Well, go ahead.
Well, there's no question that as you age and hunt, and like Joe had so many rules. One of them, you absolutely were never allowed to talk, and you didn't talk to your dog. And he'd say, "These chuckers have never heard a human voice. The first time they hear it, guess what they do? They either run or fly." I'm sitting on a rock one day with this friend, and I'm telling him this story. We have a sandwich or something, I can't remember, but so I'm telling him this story. And I get halfway through the story, and we hear these chuckers right above us get up and fly off. And I'm like, well, shit, look at that! What a bunch of old Joe was right. But they, that noise that they're not used to, just is, I don't know. You see people walking along talking to each other, hollering back and forth, or just hollering at your dog. That's probably the worst thing as a chucker hunter.
Yeah, I use a whistle for a lot of reasons. One is distance, but the other is it doesn't sound like a human, and it might give me a little bit of an edge. But this whole idea of being stealthy in many ways, if we could all harken back to when we were little kids and we were playing Army, we'd probably be a lot better off.
Well, one of the as a bird hunter, one of my claims to fame was the way I learned to. I'd get off work. I'd get off work at 2:30. I'd come home, grab a couple of dogs, and go pheasant hunting. And invariably, by December, these damn birds, there were lots of pheasants. But as soon as you walked into a field, they were getting up at the other end. They would run ahead of you, and so I took a transistor radio and I duct taped it to a rod, and I went to the far end of this field. I stuck the rod in the ground, turned the radio on as loud as it'd go, drove to the far end of the field, started hunting towards that radio. And when I got to where I could hear the radio in the distance, birds were flying over my head. In other words, I was herding these birds toward that radio, and when they could hear it, they all stopped, and either my dogs were able to get on point, or some of them, if they were going to flush wild, they were going to fly back. And that was my way of hunting by myself.
Well, I just finished an episode of the show that'll be on in about 3-4 weeks, and talked about being your own blocker. Didn't do it quite that way, but I love that idea. That ranks right up there in the chapter that we need to add to our books next time, and that is all the crazy things people have done. You might remember the chucker hunters would tie a helium balloon to their belt.
Oh yeah. Oh God, yes. I heard. Yeah, I never did it.
I don't know anybody who's ever done it or will admit it, at least. But same idea. Yeah. You're using common sense and thinking like a bird. And I won't bore everybody with that story, by the way, but let me just remind you, you're listening to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden. That's Bob Farris. Here we are in the Cabela's podcast studio. Bob, because you've got pups on the ground right now, and it's a timely question, because soon enough somebody's going to be coming over and looking at that litter and trying to decide which one they're going to get. Now, I know a lot of you guys are adamant about picking the dog for the buyer. One way or the other, what are some of the things we should be mindful of when we're actually to the point where we're picking a puppy from a breeder that we know and trust?
I think, I don't think anybody's picked a puppy here for close to 10 years. And most people, once I explain it to them, once I show them our evaluation sheet and how thorough we are about it, they go, I get it. You're gonna see them every day. I'm gonna see them for 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. And you know, I have a wife that she really is dialed in. She does things that are right. And you said earlier, you're still doing this, and you know, it's not that I'm the only one that loves doing it. My wife loves it. She whelps all our litters. She raises them. I step in at the end and hand them off to people,
and get all the glory.
And it looks like I do all the work, and I literally do not. I train the dogs. I decide what dog's going to breed to what dog, and you know, that's my part. But you know, to answer your question, when these puppies, before they open their eyes and their ears, she goes out and sits with the mother, and she'll sit there and she'll make sure every puppy has sucked on her little finger, tried to nurse on her little finger, and she'll sit there and coo them and talk to them with her breath right next to their face, so they get to smell her breath, they get to smell her. Now, when they open their eyes, her theory is when they open their eyes, they go, "My God, so that's what you look like. You're that thing that loved me," and they're instantly attracted to her. Then she'll sit out there in the puppy pen and she'll sing to them and she'll talk to them, and she's always we have a TV going 24/7 in our puppy room. And she wants them to hear all of these human voices. I went out there the other day and Archie Bunker was on, and I thought, oh my God, we're introducing these puppies to Archie Bunker.
Oh, but just the voice, not the philosophy.
Yeah. But then she'll take them on little field trips as they get older and sit out in the grass, you know, on a blanket with them, and she'll try to sneak back to the house. There's always one that knows, absolutely lays there like it's asleep, but it's not, and knows, and it's right at her heels. She can't. So she'll kind of rate the personalities, and if she sees a puppy that's always biting the other puppies, bullying it, you know, we rate that one as an alpha puppy. If she sees one that's submissive, we rate that one maybe a little more submissive. And if we've got a submissive puppy, she'll put a little honey on its back. That way the other puppies will start licking it instead of biting it. And that little puppy all of a sudden thinks, my God, I'm the most popular pup in the bunch.
Okay, hold it. Everybody, make a mental note of this. This is the kind of stuff that you're not going to get anywhere else. But I know exactly what you're speaking about there, Bob, and what a brilliant solution to that problem. Give her a gold star for me.
Well, you know, I've had people pull in the driveway at my house wanting to look at our dogs, meet us, blah, blah, blah. And I look at her and she's giving me the no way. And what I'm looking at is a bright yellow Hummer and somebody hopping out of it, and it's coming from Sun Valley, Idaho. And the guy jumps out of it in blue and white camo, and his honey's got a bonnet as big as like she's going to the Derby. And, you know, just people in LaFayette's like, no, they're not getting one of my puppies. No way.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to make the grade with her, in so to speak, because, you know, I wouldn't have the success I have. If I had to do this, I mean, it'd be totally different. I'd do it the way most men do with puppies. And I save little teal and freeze them. And so I'll put little teal in with the puppies when they're about 6 weeks old, let them smell them, let them start kind of chewing on them, drag them around, and, you know, just see, I'm trying to maybe identify some of the prey drive that's in this pup, which isn't really as realistic as probably I should be evaluating the personality more. But we'll do those things. We'll bring a puppy in the house by itself. It's never been in the house before. We'll bring it in. It's all alone, and we sit and watch TV and leave the puppy running around, and we're we're looking for separation anxiety. How
Mm-hmm.
how bad? Because every now and then there's a pup that just starts screaming. Well, that's the pup. I live in Idaho. That's the pup you want to send to Connecticut. Or somewhere.
But this is, but you can work through a lot of that simply by exposing these dogs.
Yeah,
I mean,
the key is that the new owner. I have this whole sheet. Each puppy has a little different colored collar, and there's probably about 20 little ratings that go with each puppy.
Yeah.
And if I have a puppy that has separation anxiety, I've seen it as at 5, 6 weeks, 7 weeks old. I want the new owner to know, okay, this is something you're going to have to deal with. You need to get one of those little puppy nursemaid things that has a little thumping heart in it, so the puppy gets to sleep with that at night for the first month or so. And so you're right. It's all overcomable, but the new owner needs to know potentially what they should be doing.
Or else you can watch the living room curtains come down the first time you go out to dinner. Or, or wait a minute, did I mention the vacuum cleaner or the bathroom floor? No, I didn't, but I will now, just so that you know that. Bob, we really do need to do this more often, and I mean that sincerely. I miss you guys over there, and that other guy we were talking about with the funny name, he's one of my good guys too in this world. But before I turn you loose, and I promise that's going to happen momentarily. So everybody else, if you want to tune out again, here's your chance. But Bob Farris, author, NAVHDA judge, dog trainer, dog breeder, avid hunter. If you were going to leave us, we all aspire to be like you, Bob. If you're going to leave us with anything at all about anything in that whole world, what would you, in 25 words or less, what would you tell us?
Is there anything that I'm really proud of that my 40 years has kind of created or accomplished or whatever? I would probably say sitting in that bar with Bill Athens creating the Alliance. That has done more for the Poodle Pointer than anything. That group has just gone through a big reorganization. And I got to say, I am so proud now to see anybody that wants to see where the Poodle Pointer Alliance is today, go to pudelpointer-alliance.com. And you'll see there now we have 7 board of directors, and it's just a great young group. I mean, when I passed 70 and Bill Athens passed 80, we said, it's time to pass the torch. We got to make sure a younger group of people take over the Alliance. And so we did, and we created this board of directors, 7 guys, and they're all very young, enthusiastic guys. And what they've created is just, it's just beautiful. The bylaws, they're incorporated. They've got a trademark, a federal trademark now for Napa. They've just done everything that should have been done in years past. But it kind of ensures to me this breed is in safe hands because of these. And you can go on that website and you can see who the individuals are. But one's a veteran, and the other unique thing is the way they're spread out. One's from Mississippi, one's from Maryland, one's from Montana, one's from Texas, one's from Washington, one's from Minnesota. So they're all spread all over. And our original Alliance gathering was in McCall, Idaho. 15 of us gathered there and created the Alliance. And this group of 7 is going to meet there again this summer in McCall and have their first board of directors meeting. And some of the old guys, me, and there'll probably be 8 or 10 of us that'll show up too, and everybody gets to shake hands, meet each other, eat breakfast together and whatnot. And it would be so wonderful. I've told Bridget Nielsen, you need to consider this for the Wieslas. I know Jeff Funke has done it to a certain extent with the wire hairs, and it's something that really helps protect the breeds, these different breeds.
Yeah, and you know, that's exactly right. There are so many people who are breeding or selling dogs for the wrong reasons. It's nice to hear somebody doing it for the right reasons. More power to you and the North American Pudelpointer Alliance. And
this alliance got to be 49 breeders, and I can tell you, it was a tough deal, and I don't know exactly how it's shaken out, but I know this group of 7, the board of directors, they eliminated about 5 people and said, "You're not what the breed needs. You're not representing." That's a tough call. That's tough to do to somebody, but that shakeout is going to be better for the breed in the end.
Well,
and my hat's off to them. I don't think I could have done it.
Well, so. I'm glad somebody did, and I'm glad that it's going in the right direction. Congratulations on, gosh, so many things. I haven't talked with you since the book came out, so good on you for that, and LaFay as well. Good job on that. For everything else in your life and everything you've done for all of us in the versatile hunting dog world, thank you very much, and thanks for being a part of the Upland Nation podcast. Bob Farris, thank you so much.
You bet. You bet. Adios.
But don't go anywhere, because we've got a lot more to talk about, including some advice on public access hunting that I have learned over the years, and particularly this season. But first, quick mention for you all of the Dogtra T&B dual collar. Dual, 2 collars. You can put them both on 1 dog if you're training that way, or on 2 dogs and train 2 dogs together. What I love so much about this Dogtra collar is the fact that you don't need to flip a switch, toggle back and forth, press on a screen or anything else. You got 2 sets of buttons. You got 1 set for dog A and 1 set for dog B. Why didn't anybody think of that sooner? Anyway, it works very well for me, and it'd probably work very well for you. Do me a favor, at least take a look at dogtra.com, the T&B dual. If you do buy one, here's an incentive, 10% discount and free shipping on anything over $200, but you got to use the code SLUN10. Do me a big favor, go on over there and take a close look. If you're shopping for training collars now that the season is over, you might be well served by the Dogtra T&B dual. Hey, this land is your land, and believe me, I have learned it in spades this just past season. I hope you got out there and enjoyed some public access hunting, whether it's CRP, Forest, Bureau of Land Management, or whatever. All those walk-in areas, wildlife management areas, even waterfowl production areas. We own them, or we have paid in one way or another for access. And I made a study of it this year. Here are some of the things that I've learned. Someday I'll write an article on this for somebody. Let's see who wants it. But in the meanwhile, here's some lessons for you from me. Number 1 on the list, if you do have a choice, go where there are a number of areas that you can access. So pick a town or pick some other way to locate headquarters that is smack dab in the middle of, 3 walk-in areas or 4 waterfowl production areas, or a little bit of everything. Because there might be somebody else who gets there first. There might be one place where the snow is too deep, or they plowed under all the good cover. You're close to another one, go there instead. And drive and walk a little farther than most of the other people. It doesn't take much. In fact, I remember years ago a hunter telling me, if you get a 1/4 mile from the road, you're going to be farther than most people ever go. I've learned that a lot of times this year. Put on your best hiking boots, lace them up tight, and then finally spend some time in the local watering hole and restaurants, the coffee shops and cafes, because even if you're not out there actively seeking advice, once people know you're new to the area, I'll bet you somebody will they'll make an attempt to help you out in one way or another. I'll tell you more about that in the weeks to come, and all the stories we had from buckaroos and cattle rustlers and everybody else. It's all coming up in an upcoming edition of the Upland Nation podcast. All right. So one more reminder, please. Check out my new wing shooting website to do more of the things I've just been talking about. It is findbirdhuntingspots.com. It is full of articles and directions and advice on getting out there and accessing all of those kind of places. We don't get down to the latitude and longitude, but I will tell you that north of this town, in this general area, is a waterfowl production area that not only holds ducks, but it holds a lot of pheasants because it's next to cornfields. Find it all at findbirdhuntingspots.com. You can sign up for the mailing list, and if you do, you're entered to win that pointer over-under shotgun. Any gauge you like from my good friends Andy and Rick and everybody at Pointer Shotguns. And finally, do yourself a favor, do your ears a favor, and go to espamerica.com and shop around for the electronic hearing protection device that will fit you literally and figuratively the best. You start losing your hearing when you start shooting or working on dragsters or playing in too loud a band. It ain't coming back. You can drink all the magic potion you've got. You can conjure up all the voodoo curses you know, and they won't help you. espamerica.com will, by preventing hearing loss to begin with. And with that, it's time to say goodbye from the Cabela's Podcast Studios. I'm Scott Linden, your host here at the Upland Nation Podcast. You want to stay in touch? All sorts of ways to do it. The Upland Nation Facebook page, the Wing Shooting USA TV Facebook page. You can always drop me an email at scottlindonoutdoors@gmail.com. And you can subscribe, rate, or review the Upland Nation podcast. I sure would appreciate that because all of those things help when it comes to finding sponsors. And without sponsors, there ain't no Upland Nation podcast. Appreciate all your help, all of your attention. And I hope you had a great season. Only 8 months to the opening of chucker season in some states. Maybe it's rough grouse for you, or maybe it's sharptails. Wherever it is, I hope you're planning already. And in the meanwhile, take care of your dog, train him up, enjoy the rest of the off season, and maybe I'll see you at Pheasant Fest. Thanks again. Appreciate your listening.